Hello, everyone. Welcome to Week 9 Literature Objective. This week, we're going to integrate writing with literature. We're going to explain a skill used in writing, and we are going to apply in literature. It's the skill of comparing and contrasting. And when we talk about compare and contrast, we're talking about the similarities and the differences involving two subjects. When a comparison means or shows how two things are alike, a contrast shows how two things are different. When you're choosing a topic to write a compare and contrast piece on, you need to make sure not to choose two totally unrelated subjects. You need to choose choose subjects that have basic similarities in order to be able to compare and contrast between the two. For example, two movies. You can choose the characters to compare these characters in this movie to the characters in the second movie. Or two short stories. You can choose the theme to compare how is the theme portrayed in this story and this story. And of course, both of them need to have this theme portrayed so that you'll be able to compare and contrast. Or you can compare and contrast a book and a movie. For example, The Hunger Games. You can compare and contrast the novel, the book you've read, to the movie. How are they similar and how are they different? Before you start writing your compare and contrast piece, you need to brainstorm. You need to put down your ideas in an organized way so that you'll be able to follow up and make sure that you've covered everything. For you to brainstorm, here is a tool, a brainstorming tool for you to use. It's the Venn diagram. As you can see here in this Venn diagram, you have it's a comparison tool where you have here in between the word same, the similarities between both. What are the similarities between the two novels, let's say? And the outside boxes, circles, you have the differences. Here you need to write the differences in book 1 and the differences in book 2, or the differences that you find in the points that you find in the book that are different from those you find in the movie. So the Venn diagram is a tool for you to help you organize and brainstorm your ideas, the similarities and the differences. Look at this example here. You have the two books, The Lottery and Button Button. In between here, in the middle, you have the similarities. They give you all the points that are common between the two novels. And in the outside semicircles, you have the differences. For example, let's take a similarity here. You have someone dies. So in both novels, you have this event taking place, the death of someone. You have a shocking ending. Both of them hold a shocking ending. Both stories present a moral or an ethical dilemma. So both of them use the third person point of view. So here are the similarities, what you can find in both. As for the differences, they contrasted the conflict, the conflict. In The Lottery, the conflict is man versus society, whereas in Button Button, the conflict is man versus self and man versus man. So based on the two novels, here they were capable to compare and contrast or brainstorm the points in where they point out the similarities of both and the differences. So this is how a Venn diagram works, and this is how you should be able to start this week's task in preparing your Venn diagram, the points, and then proceeding with your writing. When you are writing, before you get started with your compare and contrast writing, you need to develop a thesis statement. And for you to be able to develop this statement, you need to refer to the brainstorming of your Venn diagram. You need to look at it and look at the points that you've listed and ask yourself, is there something special or important in the similarities and differences on my list? For example, let's say the majority, when you are comparing two books, you saw so many similarities. So you can take this as a significant point in order to highlight in your thesis. You ask yourself, what have I discovered about my two topics? Like when you get to check your brainstorming points, okay, here, for example, you see a lot of similarities. You can use this in your thesis statement to point out that both novels have a lot of similarities. Let's say, for example, we're comparing the two seasons, autumn and spring. Okay, those are two different seasons, but at the same time, they have similarities. So after looking at our list, when we work on the Venn diagram, okay, the thesis statement might be something similar to this. Although there is exquisite beauty in the seasons of autumn and spring, this shows that both of them are wonderful seasons. They have wonderful weather. But there are also distinctions which allow each season to stand on its own. Although they have similarities, both of them are wonderful, yet at the same time, they have differences that make each season unique on its own, to stand on its own, has its special features. So this would be an example of a thesis statement. How would you organize your writing based on your Venn diagram? The introduction of your essay should mention both subjects in a strong and clearly defined thesis. So you need to mention the two subjects that you're talking about, that you're going to compare and contrast. You need to introduce them to the reader. Again, the thesis statement that I introduced earlier. Although there is exquisite beauty in the seasons of autumn and spring, there are also distinctions which allow each season to stand on its own. So this is a thesis statement in order to introduce your compare and contrast piece before going into your real body writing, body paragraphs. When you are writing your piece, in every piece, when it comes to writing, it is structured in a way where you have introduction, body, and conclusion. In the compare and contrast, you have two forms or two patterns that you can follow. Either the divided pattern when you are comparing and contrasting, or the alternating pattern. But you need to keep in mind, both patterns include 4 paragraphs: the introduction, 2 body paragraphs, and the conclusion. Now, the divided pattern and the alternating pattern, they differ in the body paragraphs. So in the body paragraphs, you either use the divided pattern or the alternating pattern. How does it work? In the divided pattern, the first paragraph, as I said, is an introduction to the topic and the thesis statement that I just introduced here about autumn and spring. In the body paragraph, the body part, you have 2 paragraphs. In the divided pattern, in the first paragraph of the body, you discuss every supporting details related to the autumn. And in the second body paragraph, you discuss and give all the supporting details related to spring. So you separate your subjects to 2 paragraphs. In one paragraph, you write everything related to autumn. In the second paragraph, you write everything related to spring. And in the fourth paragraph falls the concluding statement. So this is why this pattern is called the divided pattern. You divide the body paragraph, the body part, into 2 paragraphs, and you separate each subject. You discuss each subject in one separate paragraph. Going to the alternating paragraph, similar to the divided paragraph, we have the divided pattern, we have 4 paragraphs. First, the introduction and the thesis. This never changes in both patterns. And we have the conclusion. As we said, the body is the part that differs. In the alternating pattern, when you start your first paragraph in the body, you discuss and give all the details of the similarities between both subjects. That means you discuss the similarities between spring and autumn in one body paragraph. And in the second body paragraph, you discuss all the details of the differences between spring and autumn. So in the body paragraphs here, they are separated in a way where in one paragraph you discuss all the similarities, and in the other paragraph you discuss all the differences of spring and autumn. So this is how both patterns differ, and you choose whatever pattern you're more comfortable with and you feel like you can better organize your ideas. In the concluding statement, the conclusion, both the divided pattern, if you're going to follow the divided or the alternating pattern, both of them include a concluding statement, of course. In the conclusion, you need to include a final connection about the two subjects. Here, it's more related to the similarities between both. You need to restate the similarities. You don't go into details, but you give a connection between both seasons, the autumn and spring. And you give let's say, a restatement of your thesis. The thesis that you gave in the introduction, you rewrite it in a different way. For example, even though there are lots of differences between the two seasons, there are also some similarities too. This is something we stated in the thesis in the introduction. So you restated it here in the conclusion. What are the similarities? Which are the connections? The length of day and night are the same in both. Both seasons are transitional seasons. How? Spring precedes summer and fall precedes winter. Moreover, in both seasons, people like to travel. Both seasons are great in many ways. However, I admire the magic of fall colors. So here you gave your own opinion about which season do you admire most. So this would be a concluding statement when you are comparing and contrasting fall and spring seasons. So this is all regarding the explanation of comparing and contrasting a literature piece. The task for this week is the following. You are going to compare and contrast the theme survival. But when I'm saying that you need to compare and contrast, that means you're going to choose two novels that have the same theme, that portray the same theme, which is survival, but you're going to show the similarities of how this theme is portrayed in one story to the other, and what are the differences? How is the theme portrayed differently? Your task is the following. Survival is one major theme portrayed in both novels, Great Expectations and The Hunger Games. So based on your understanding of the survival events and acts presented in both, compare and contrast this theme of survival in both Great Expectations and The Hunger Games. You need to give 3 clear examples. When you are comparing and contrasting, you either choose the divided pattern or the alternating pattern in your body parts. You need to compare and contrast how this theme is portrayed in both. What are the similarities and what are the differences? You have the space below on your worksheet. You have a copy for yourself. You type in your answer, and you need to use font 12 so that I'll have a clear piece for me to read and be able to correct. Here you have a list of some keywords that might help when you are comparing and contrasting. You can refer to these words when you are showing the similarities and the differences in theme survival based on the 2 novels, Great Expectations and The Hunger Games. So good luck in this week's task, and let me know of any question that you might have.